And there's some maybe outstanding integration work, but it'll be wrapped by
Hello? Can you guys hear me? It's fine? I think we're going to start, if you guys are okay with that. Around 15. Okay, red button. All right, welcome everybody. So welcome to Taming the Beast, a practical guide for taking over a Drupal project. So I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Sebastien.lamy. I'm a web developer at Symmetris, which is a web company based in Montreal. We are mostly doing Drupal website. We are about 25 people with about half developers. So just on my side, I've been working on Drupal since 2010, roughly. I've been in the web industry for about 15 years also. Just a quick note about this presentation. It's actually originally made by Mathieu Galera, which is one of my coworkers, but his girlfriend was actually due to have a baby, so he's not actually presenting, so I'm taking over the presentation. Maybe later I will do a presentation about how to take over a presentation, but right now it's just about Drupal. So what is it about? What's the story here? So let's put a little bit of context. So here we have Julien. He's a real guy at Symmetris. He's the business guy. So basically he sells our expertise. And one day he entered in the office and he say, "Hey, good news, I have a new client. You're gonna maintain his website and you're gonna add new features." So it's a good news for him, but for a developer, it's kind of not that enthusiastic, because basically what he's thinking is like, okay, I'm gonna have a new website to maintain. I don't know what's gonna be inside. I'm gonna have to clean up stuff. I'm gonna have to fix bugs that I didn't actually introduce myself. So he's not so happy about it. That's kind of the context of it. And then the work needs to start. It's basically like you're given a box and you have no idea what's inside. When you open the box, you may actually discover the beast. That's what it's all about. It may be scary, maybe it's good, maybe it's perfect and it's fine, and we are not going to make a discussion about this because it's fine, but maybe it's actually scary. So what to do? What it means for you when it's actually scary, it means that the code could be 30 versions behind. So there is a lot of security updates to do and they are not done. Maybe the core is hacked. So just for people that are actually not aware of this, when we say hack in the Drupal world, it means that it doesn't mean that there's a virus or anything like that. It means that it could be, but it's more like it's more like the code of the core of the contrib actually is not the same as it is on the Drupal community. So it means that when you want to apply a new update, you're gonna erase every single code that has been changed in there. So maybe you are losing a functionality or anything like that. It's not good when it's hacked. Don't do this. You need to extend it. Well, it's just developer speaking. But it might mean that the application is sending tons of emails to client on different actions. Like a node is saved somewhere and it sends emails. You don't want this. Well, you could, but actually you need to be aware of it. What it also means is that maybe the configuration is oddly managed. When I say oddly managed, it's if it's managed at all. It could be completely not managed. So back in Drupal 7, for instance, we had a module called feature that was actually storing the configuration, and so you could actually match the database and the configuration, and this would actually sync properly, but maybe it's not like that in the beast that you're actually trying to tame. It might mean that the deployment is hazardous, so every single time you actually push something, either in one of the environment or in production, you're actually crossing fingers and hope that it's actually going to be okay and not break anything. That what it could mean for you. And for the client, what it means is that the initial core and contrib updates might cost thousands of dollars because there's a lot of stuff to actually update and to make up to date. It might mean that during the process of the takeover, the website went 10 times down, maybe just for a small amount of time, but still. It may also mean for the client that they are losing content or customers during the process because some things weren't understood properly. And it could also mean, and that's one important one, that the first improvements that they will see in their website is going to arrive 20 weeks after they actually give you the website. So it's basically all about fear. And this whole conversation that we're going to have is how we can actually mitigate fear. So the fear for us, as a company, because it's kind of scary to work on something that we have no idea what's inside. We want to be comfortable and not be like this. And also the client's fear, because basically there's high chance that if you're taking over a project, it's because there was something wrong with the previous company. Maybe something actually didn't work well or didn't work as expected, and they actually are changing it. So they might be a little bit reluctant in giving you a project. They don't know you necessarily, so it may be scary for them as well. So how do we mitigate this? So we're going to breathe first, and it's going to be fine. So there's a lot of things that you don't know. You don't know why the website went that crazy. There's no way you could know, and you don't want to spend time knowing what. What you want to know is how you can make things better, and you need to find a path forward. So how do you start this? So the first one is that you want to estimate the takeover part. There's a lot of clients that think that when you take over a project, then day one you're going to be ready and you can actually implement new features. It's not going to be like that. And that's not what your sales guy should say. You should not say, okay, so everything next week I'm going to start with that and we're going to be all good. No. What you want, and that's the developer actually need at the very beginning, is to feel comfortable. And how it actually happens, it means that you need to understand exactly what's in the box, what's in this website. And you want to have a fully functional and safe local and test environment. So you can be comfortable in testing in there and implementing things. You want to understand that. And after this, you can start to actually implement new features and all that. And estimating this is super important because sometimes we actually tend to underestimate. So the website is working, it's good. We're going to work on that next week. But no, it's not going to happen like that. And it's not how we mitigate fear in there. So how do we achieve that? First thing, we hand down documentation. It's really important to put your hand on anything that is actually close to something that is documented. It could mean like all the RFP, like the first request for proposal, because in there you can actually have understanding on why actually things were that way. It might be tough to find sometimes because once the website is done, maybe the website is 5 years old and nobody has it. But if you can try to make the effort to find this one, it's actually worth it. You want to actually find any kind of functional or technical documentation that the client may have, but also, if you can, what the previous company actually provided. Maybe they actually had a documentation about just for developers, that they thought that the client would not need that, but they have this internally, and it might be really valuable because inside you might have a lot of insight about things that you want to do and not to do. You want to have the list of backlogs items, from the client and from the previous company, like basically all bugs, hot fixes, all the stuff that they wanted to have and it's still in there and it has not been implemented yet. And if possible, it's great to actually have the original repositories because in there you have the history of all the code changes. So you may actually understand some things, like you are seeing something that is developed kind of right, and in the history you can see that it's actually changed and you don't know why, but there might be a good reason why. So it actually give you clues basically on things and on the history of the project. So once you have the like what you can have for the documentation, you need to understand what's going on, like kind of the big picture of the project that you are taking over. You want to understand who are the stakeholders, who is in charge of what, and who is actually implicated in this whole project. You want to understand the whole digital environment. So you are taking a Drupal website, but maybe there are other things in there. Maybe your Drupal website is connecting to an external service using an API. Maybe it's giving information. Maybe it's actually getting information. Maybe you're on a server with other websites from the client. So you want to understand all that, because you may actually get what's the purpose of the website and not making assumptions about what it should do. And then you want to understand the governance. This one is really important, and you should write this down. When I say governance, it means like every people and their cell phones. You want to have this for like who is in charge of, who should I contact if the website goes down? And you want to actually have the email, the name, and the cell phone, or the phone number. You want like if, I don't know, if the DNS needs to change, then who should I contact? So you want to have the whole picture of this, and you want to document this. So you have the documentation, you understand the big picture, and now you start on the technical environment. We are not even starting to set that up locally. Like we want to actually just understand what's in there. So I was talking about the DNS, for instance, but you want to understand the DNS zones. So every single subdomain that is related to the same domain as what you are. If the DNS zones are managed by the registrar, if they are managed by the hosting company, all this kind of stuff. You want to understand who is the hosting company, where it's hosted, obviously. You want to understand the type of infrastructure and SLA linked to it. So SLA is a service level agreement. One thing, for instance, is that your website is hosted on Amazon, and like the previous company used to have a sysadmin in there that was supposed to manage that. And maybe the new client is expecting you to actually have this. So you want to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So you want to understand all the infrastructure and all the agreement in between the people involved. And you want to know all the softwares and the versions attached to it. So later on, when we're going to install that locally, we're going to reproduce exactly the same stuff as productions. Finally, I don't know if it's the final one. You want to know all the integration and dependencies you have with your website. If there is any kind of CRM integration, if there is an ERP, any e-commerce platform, all these kind of things that are integrating with the website. Yeah, the last one. You want to know any kind of build steps that may be actually in this website. I'm thinking first about the task runner, for instance. So basically for all the stylings, the JavaScript and CSS files. It happens to us once where we actually got a website, and this website was only, we had only CSS minified and JavaScript and no single original source. So we couldn't actually make any kind of improvement for there. We needed to actually hunt down where we could get all these files so we could actually start to work on that. Otherwise, you need basically to start over or to find some ways to uncompile, but it's kind of messy. So that's about the technical environment. So then you want to understand the application. So what kind of automation are in there? When I say automation, I'm talking about any kind of hooks, any kind of cron job that could run, any kind of rules, like when I do this, it should be in this stage, for instance, or any kind of workflow that are related to this as well, in terms of content moderation, for instance. If there are any email sent, it happens to us one time that actually email were sending to a bunch of people because we did not actually look through it at the very beginning. I'm going to talk about that later. You want to understand exactly the APIs that are connected. I was talking about the CRM, the ERPs, commerce. And like, for instance, a commerce platform, you want to know if there is any kind of sandbox that you can have, so you can reproduce that on your different environment that are not actually production. CRM and ERP, same thing, that you want really to know if there is a possibility to have a test environment in the CRM. Some CRM actually provide this kind of stuff, which is good because you can use these credentials of the test into all the dev and local things, so you're sure that you're not interacting with the real people in the CRM. So it might be good to understand all this as well. You want to know all the libraries that are in there as well. It may be like stupid stuff like Drupal has a CK Finder, for instance, and some CK Finder solution needs credentials. They need to pay like, I don't know, it's $10 a year. But if you don't pay it, then you cannot use your CK Finder in there. So you cannot find your files into the WYSIWYG, which is like really stupid things. But still, it's an external library that you need to actually provide. So understanding the license and all this on the libraries might be actually helpful. One good thing to that we started to do actually is to look for keywords in the code. So we can even like write scripts to look for any kind of integration that might be related to all this. Like we look for SOAP, a keyword, or Drupal HTTP request, which is the service that is used, so we can actually understand what's going on behind the hood. And you want to understand if there is any kind of user-generated content. Basically, like web forms is the first that comes to my mind. So any contact forms that is generated by the users. If you have, I don't know, job listings in there and they apply, like users can actually apply for jobs in the website, you want to make sure that you understand all that. So you're not actually going to override anything by mistake. So once we have all this, we understand the documentation and we understand the big picture and the whole application and the functionalities, we can start to install it locally. One thing that actually is good is to disconnect from the network first. So you might wonder why, but there's something happened, like I was talking about the mails. We actually got a website, we started to install it locally, and then by mistake you ran a cron just in your local stuff. And this cron was actually checking an API connecting to a CRM, and the CRM, all the credentials were live, were production. So it was actually sending, like, I don't know, 10,000 emails to all the users to say there is a new update in something called localhost, which is obviously not good because localhost is not really accessible to them. So it's actually a good practice to do that. And then from there, you can check if it works or not. There is high chance that it's not going to work because there is always like dependencies from other connections. But if there is actually dependencies, usually you're going to get errors and you're going to actually understand a little bit better what are connected to what. So it's actually a good thing to do, even if it looks kind of weird to do that. Then once you actually have a good picture of this and you understand how things connect, you try to reproduce exactly as the production. It's something that is kind of classic. I'm sure you all know that. We want to have exactly the same setup local that in production. So when we push in production, we don't have this, oh, well, it works in my machine problem. It's a common issue. You want to catch any potential dangerous external integration. Same like by basically going all over the different modules. You can actually look into the database as well to see if there are any kind of tables that are not supposed to be there, so you can actually have clues about why this table exists and what does it do. We had a really weird one. It was actually, I'm not sure, it's really technical, but basically we had a table with a clear password of users in there, and when we visit a page that was a hidden block with PHP stuff in there, it was actually removing the password of the previous users with the one in clear on this table. We had no idea why. It's weird. And it was running every day because the search index was actually looking into this page. Anyway, so like users were actually going there, oh, my password is not correct. Okay, I'm going to change it. And then the day after, oh, my password is not correct. And they had to do this a lot of time before we actually started to get what was going on. So you might have really weird stuff. So what you want to worry about is API integration, mail send, as I said. There is a good stuff which is called the mail hog for local environment. which is kind of neat. It allows you to, every single email that is sent by Drupal, so not by external API, but by Drupal, is going to be sent through Mailhog. So it's going to stop actually the propagation of the emails, and you can actually have the overview of all the emails sent by it. So if you actually start to develop locally your stuff, and then you write a cron, whatever, and it actually sends a ton of emails through Drupal, you will have a long list of mails actually into this Mailhog logs. So it can be useful. So once you have all this, you want to look at any non-functional requirements. So what is non-functional requirements? Basically, functional requirements is that, okay, I do this, I'm supposed to have this. It's kind of a straightforward rule. Non-functional requirements are everything else. It's pretty straightforward. So first one in there, security. It's really important. Obviously, you want to look at how many versions it is behind. Is there any security update to do on the core, on the contrib, or any kind of weird permissions going on in the files and maybe in live in production. You want to check about the recoverability and see if there is any kind of strategy from the client about this, about recover stuff. So is there any backups? How their backup strategy is working. Is it just in a single environment? Do they have like multiple locations to have it? Do they even have a recoverability strategy? Because if they don't have, maybe it's something that you want to actually share with them and maybe apply. You want to check about interoperability. So this one is often like overviewed. Basically, what interoperability means, like for instance, there is a CRM that is actually blocking some access from external IPs. So one of your mandate in your takeover is to actually move to another server. And so you are on a new server, you are on Amazon now because they were on something else before. And Amazon has a new IP, and this IP is actually going to get blocked by the CRM because they have some sort of whitelisting rules. So the interoperability is actually this. It's all this kind of connection, and you want to make sure that everything actually operates like this, like properly. And you want to check about their deployment process, if they have one. Hopefully they have one. If they don't, maybe it's you to actually set up a new one. You want to check if you can implement continuous integration. All these kind of things that would help you and make you feel more comfortable working in the project. There are two modules that are actually kind of useful, mostly about the security part. Security review, I don't think there is a module for Drupal 8, but Drupal 18 core actually do that a little bit better now. But it's basically listing all the requirements that you want to see in your website. Not requirements, actually more like best practices in terms of permissions for files and all that. And the hacked module, what I was talking about, a module can be hacked just before. This one is actually showing you which module is hacked, if the core is hacked, and where it's actually hacked. So you can see the diff in between the two stuff and see if it's important or not. If you can actually override completely this and make your security update safely, or if you want to actually reproduce the hack into something more standard in a separate and extendable way. So then, can you go further than that? There's a good thing is to build a do not list. Because even if you actually took over the project, it doesn't mean that you are full in charge and it's standard now and it's all good. There might be some stuff that are still in there once you actually took the project over. And building a do not list might actually help other developers like you, but maybe like anybody actually working on that. It could be like, I don't know, don't use backup and migrate module because it actually crashed the website. It might mean like, do not, like for the time being, sometimes it may do not trigger cron because it's right now it's broken. So it's actually a good idea to do that and to keep this list updated. So like the do not run cron, for instance, at one point you want to remove this. So keep that updated. You want to make a test plan, so not all agencies actually set that up. We started to do that at Symmetris about a year ago or so. So to have actually a dedicated department for testings, it's really good to have this, so you can actually make like a test runs and build a list of all the tests that you need to do It could be automated, but it could be also like manual testings. And you want to make sure that when you deploy a new feature, when you fix something, you run through that test plan again to make sure that things are not broken, especially if you build this do not list before, you can actually understand things that could actually not or break the website. So yeah, it's a good thing, but I know that it's not always easy to implement. And one thing that you want to do ultimately is to actually make the application your own. You want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with that, as if like it's something that you've built. It's not easy to do at the very beginning, but along the way it's going to go that way. Like, I don't know, for instance, you are used to have the admin bar module, for instance, and in this one it wasn't. Well, just let's add it. It's easy to do. You make actually feel more like your global and normal process. So it's kind of important to have. And then you want to go over risk mitigation strategies with the client. So this one it's kind of important as well, and we started to do that because we started like about a few months ago. We even actually provide some sort of document at the end of the takeover to the client with basically the list of things that we think they are at risk, like things that we consider that it's urgent to do, even though they may have their own backlog with their, I want to have this, and this really soon because blah, blah, blah. You may actually just give them something, okay, we are aware of all your stuff that you want to implement, but here's the list of all the things that you should consider that are really risky, that we consider that we should actually take in consideration. In this document, we also started to add the gray areas, because even if we started with that, maybe, I don't know, we estimated a month to make the takeover, so we have a month to make this, but in a month, there might be a lot of things to fix, and there might be things that we didn't have time to check because they were kind of working okay. So we didn't actually dig too much into it. But there are still kind of gray areas that you are not sure, you'd never work on this section of the website, so you don't want to make like feel the client that we own completely the stuff. So giving them the gray areas actually is really helping with them to actually be transparent. Actually, yeah, I'm talking about transparency. The last thing is about compassion and transparency, which actually wins over fear. And basically being compassionate and transparent with first the client. So as I mentioned, like really sharing exactly what's our concerns. And we are humans. Well, I mean, everybody here is human. So if you share with them like really directly and really quickly all the things that concerns you, they're going to appreciate that. So you want to be actually transparent with them. You want to be compassionate and transparent with the previous team. While the previous team, it's more like compassionate than transparent, because you have no idea about how things, like what was the conditions of this team, like how do they work, what was their relation with the client. It's often like easy to say, oh yeah, that's bullshit. They just created a website that is completely, really bad. I don't know why they do this. They're bad people. But you don't know exactly how it actually ended up here. So, yeah. And finally, you want to be compassionate and transparent with yourself. You're human. You don't know everything. So you want to create the comfort zone. So don't put too much on your shoulder. And actually, it really helps being transparent with the client because you're kind of sharing the charge. So not everything is on you because you actually share that. And it's really, really good to actually share some stuff that you don't know with the client. And it doesn't make you not an expert. It makes you just human that can actually share the concern. There's actually a great talk about April Wenzel. It's about reducing pain and suffering in tech. And so it's called Programmers Don't Like People, or Do They? And I really encourage you to watch this one. It's super interesting. So that's basically, to wrap this up, that's how at Symmetrics we decided to manage fear and to mitigate it. So you estimate what it takes to be comfortable working on our system. first part. Second part is you mitigate the risk by all the stuff that we mentioned before, and then you stay compassionate and transparent with the client, the previous team, and yourself. And after that, you become a happy little dog. Okay, I think that's it. I have no idea what time is it. Okay. It went kind of fast, so we have 15 minutes for questions.
Let's watch the video.
Do you want to watch the video? I think it's an hour long. Okay, do you guys have any questions? No? Are good? Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and have a good weekend.